I think the first big one, what you tried to put me away out there. And I think that's when I got the cut there, but I wanted to show the world I am the greatest now.
Marvelous Marvin Hagler was a fighter who never forgot a slight. Every insult, every injustice, every moment of disrespect, he carried them all like scars on his soul. Unlike other champions who smiled for the cameras and played politics, Hagler let his hatred burn. He used it as fuel. He turned every enemy into motivation, and every betrayal into a reason to destroy whoever stood across from him in that ring.
Swu has paid his dues along the way, getting an opportunity as the #1 challenger in the middleweight against the champion.
Boxing wasn't just a sport for Hagler, it was a war. And in war, you remember those who wronged you. The men who doubted him, the judges who robbed him, the media that ignored him. They all became part of his story. Hagler's career was built on proving people wrong, on making his enemies pay for their disrespect. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to hurt them, to break them, to make them regret ever questioning his greatness. Today, we're counting down the top 6 boxers and forces that Marvelous Marvin Hagler hated the most. These weren't just opponents. They were personal enemies who fueled his rage and shaped his legacy. From controversial decisions to racist insults, from promotional politics to stolen victories, these are the rivalries that defined one of boxing's greatest warriors. Let's get started. 6. Alan Minter. Alan Minter didn't just disrespect Marvelous Marvin Hagler. He crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Before their 1980 title fight, Minter made comments that went beyond trash talk. He said no black man would ever take his middleweight title. Those words weren't just offensive, they were deeply personal. Hagler heard them, and he never forgot. That kind of racism lit a fire inside him that burned hotter than anything else in his career.
What to bring back the boxing is to be able to bring all the champions together, okay?
The British media made it worse. They painted Minter as the hero and Hagler as the villain. The newspapers in London treated Hagler like he didn't belong, like he wasn't worthy of challenging their champion. Every headline, every interview, every prediction favored Minter. Hagler walked into hostile territory knowing the whole country was against him. But that's exactly what he wanted. He fed off the hatred. He turned it into violence. When the bell rang, Hagler unleashed pure fury. He didn't just beat Minter, he destroyed him. The fight was stopped in the 3rd round after Hagler opened brutal cuts on Minter's face.
Blood yet again.
Blood poured down as the referee waved it off. But the hatred didn't end there. Minter's fans rioted after the loss, throwing bottles and trash into the ring. Hagler had to be escorted out like a criminal, even though he'd just become world champion. That night wasn't just about winning a title. It was about revenge. Hagler made Minter pay for every racist word, every dismissive comment, every ounce of disrespect, and he did it in the most violent way possible. 5. Vito Antuofermo. Vito Antuofermo stole something from Marvelous Marvin Hagler that can never be given back: time. In 1979, Hagler fought Antuofermo for the middleweight championship in Las Vegas.
Using to the opponent. Oh, again that Antuofermo right lead caught Hagler. He is really hurt Hagler in the...
Everyone who watched that fight knew Hagler won. He outboxed Antuofermo, he landed the cleaner punches, he controlled the pace, but when the scorecards were read, the decision was a draw. Hagler didn't get the title. He had to wait, and that wait ate away at him like poison. The judges robbed him, plain and simple. 2 judges saw it differently, giving Antuofermo enough credit to keep his belt. Hagler believed it was hometown cooking, that the Italian warrior got favoritism because of his style and his fan base. Antuofermo was rough, dirty, and relentless. The kind of fighter judges loved because he made it look competitive even when he was losing. Hagler fought with skill and precision, but that night skill didn't matter. What made it worse was Antuofermo's attitude afterward. He acted like he'd beaten Hagler fair and square. No apology, no acknowledgement that the decision was questionable. just a celebration. That disrespect burned deep. Hagler had to go back to waiting, back to grinding through more fights, back to proving himself all over again. Years of his prime were wasted because of one bad decision. When Hagler finally won the title against Alan Minter months later, the memory of Antuofermo's draw never left him. It was proof that the system was rigged, that even when you dominate, you can still get robbed. Hagler never forgave him for that night. 4. Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran was everything Marvelous Marvin Hagler wanted to fight. Legendary, tough, and respected. But Duran did something that drove Hagler crazy. He avoided him. During their primes, when both men were tearing through divisions,
approaching the halfway mark of the fight, Al, I want your impressions about how one man has been able to prevail his will over the...
Duran never gave Hagler the fight he deserved. It wasn't fear exactly, but it was strategy. Duran picked his battles carefully, and Hagler wasn't part of the plan. Hagler took it personally. Here was a fighter everyone called one of the greatest ever, and he was ducking Marvelous Marvin. The boxing world talked about Duran's greatness constantly, but when it came to facing Hagler at middleweight, the fight never materialized. Promotional politics got in the way. Different camps, different networks, different agendas. But to Hagler, it felt like disrespect wrapped in excuses.
I told you I was going to eat him up like Pat-Man. I figured once I get through the right hand, then it was all mine, you know, because I think the first big one, what you tried.
When they finally fought in 1983, Duran had already moved up in weight and wasn't the same destroyer he once was. Hagler won a unanimous decision, but it felt hollow. The fight came too late, after years of waiting, after Duran had already peaked. Hagler wanted the dangerous Duran, the killer from the lightweight and welterweight days. Instead, he got an older version who was still tough, but not the legend everyone feared. The mind games before the fight made things worse. Duran talked big, acting like he was doing Hagler a favor by stepping in the ring with him. His arrogance annoyed Hagler deeply. Even in victory, Hagler felt cheated because he never got Duran at his absolute best.
Quiet here in the 8th.
What hurt most was the feeling that Duran saw him as beneath the other big names. Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, Wilfred Benitez. Those were the fighters Duran chased. Hagler felt like an afterthought, someone Duran only fought when the money was right and the risk was lower. That kind of dismissal stayed with Hagler forever. He beat Duran, but the disrespect of being avoided for years never went away. 3. Tommy Hearns. Tommy Hearns represented everything the media loved and everything Hagler hated. Hearns was young, tall, explosive, and marketable. He had the look, the knockout power, and the charisma that made promoters salivate. Meanwhile, Hagler was the blue-collar champion who had to claw for every ounce of respect. The contrast wasn't just about styles, it was about how boxing treated its fighters. Hearns got the spotlight while Hagler got overlooked. Before their legendary 1985 showdown, the trash talk got ugly. Hearns and his trainer Emanuel Stewart questioned whether Hagler could take a punch. They called him old, past his prime, vulnerable. Stewart predicted Hearns would knock him out early and expose the so-called champion as overrated. Those words cut deep because they echoed what Hagler had heard his entire career, that he wasn't good enough, that he didn't deserve his place at the top. The disrespect went beyond words. The media painted Hearns as the future and Hagler as the past. Magazine covers featured the Hitman as the new face of boxing while treating Hagler like yesterday's news. Promotional materials hyped Hearns as the favorite, the destroyer, the inevitable winner. Hagler saw it all and took it personally. Every article, every prediction, every dismissive comment became ammunition. What made this hatred different was the stakes. Losing to Hearns wouldn't just mean losing the title. It would validate every doubt, every insult, every moment of disrespect Hagler had endured. It would prove his critics right and destroy everything he'd built through years of suffering. This wasn't just a fight. It was a battle for his entire legacy, his self-worth, his place in history. When Hagler knocked Hearns out in 3 brutal rounds, it wasn't just victory, it was vindication. He didn't just beat Hearns, He silenced everyone who ever questioned him. The hatred drove him to deliver one of the greatest performances in boxing history, proving that disrespect can be the most dangerous motivation of all. 2. Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard was the one who got away, and Marvelous Marvin Hagler never forgave him for it. For years, Hagler chased Leonard, begging for the fight that would define both their legacies. But Leonard played games. He retired, came back, fought others, then retired again. He cherry-picked his moments while Hagler remained the hungry champion, waiting like a fool for a fight that Leonard controlled completely. When they finally met in 1987, everything felt wrong from the start. Leonard hadn't fought in 3 years. He moved up in weight specifically to challenge Hagler, but he did it on his terms. Contract stipulations, smaller gloves, his choice of ring size. Hagler agreed to everything because he was desperate to finally prove himself against the Golden Boy. That desperation cost him everything. The fight itself was controversial. Hagler pressed forward for 12 rounds, stalking Leonard, landing the heavier shots. But Leonard danced, showboated, and played to the judges with flashy combinations that looked better than they were. When the decision came, split decision for Leonard, Hagler's world collapsed. He knew he'd been robbed, not by punches, but by politics and popularity. The judges favored the Olympic hero, the media darling, the comeback story. Leonard was everything boxing wanted to promote. Charismatic, handsome, marketable. Hagler was the working-class warrior who didn't fit the image. The decision proved what Hagler always suspected. The system was rigged against fighters like him. Skill didn't matter when you were fighting against promotional power and media bias. What made the hatred permanent was what came next. Leonard retired again immediately after, denying Hagler the rematch he deserved. No chance for redemption, no opportunity to prove the first fight was a fluke. Leonard took Hagler's legacy and walked away, leaving the former champion with nothing but bitterness and unanswered questions. Decades later, Hagler still believed he won that night. The hatred never faded because the injustice never got corrected. Leonard stole his moment, his legacy, and his peace of mind, and got away with it forever. 1. Juan Roldan. Juan Roldan might seem like an unexpected choice for Hagler's most hated opponent, but the disrespect ran deeper than any other rivalry. In 1984, Roldan was supposed to be just another challenger, another name on Hagler's resume. But the Argentinian fighter and his team showed Hagler a level of arrogance that genuinely shocked him. They acted like the champion was already beaten before the first bell even rang. Roldan himself walked around with supreme confidence, treating Hagler like he was nothing special. For a champion who'd scratched and clawed for every ounce of respect, this casual dismissal was infuriating. What made it worse was the promotional push behind Roldan. He was being marketed as the next great middleweight, the South American warrior who would dethrone the aging champion. It was as if his entire body of work meant nothing compared to Roldan's hype and potential. When the fight happened, Hagler demolished Roldan in 10 brutal rounds. He didn't just win, he punished him for every disrespectful word. The stoppage was vicious, a statement that nobody disrespects Marvelous Marvin and walks away unscathed. Marvelous Marvin Hagler turned hatred into greatness. Every insult became fuel, every injustice became power. If you enjoyed this countdown, smash that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us who you think Hagler hated most. Thanks for watching.